All right. Let's go ahead and start. I'm excited to introduce our presenter today. Her name is Mirella Brer. She's an independent facilitator working with families using self-determination programs. She will describe what the program is and the process into getting into the programs. She's a mother. She's an advocate. She has a degree in deaf studies. She has a lot of experience supporting our community, our kids, and I'm really happy. She has really a lot of experience. I'm really excited that she's here to share her experience today. All right, go ahead in your presentation. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful to be together with all of you this morning. It's a great opportunity, and like Christine said, this is my passion. This is what I love to do, to be connected with our community and to support first my children, but first my children, and then support the rest of the community and all of us together. This is an exciting topic for me, self-determination. So I'm so excited to share with all of you today. I always introduce myself as proud mother of 2 children with unique needs. And I'm in the wrong slide. I have a daughter that was born deaf with other disabilities. I moved to United States when I was 27, and I've been married for 33 years. Right away, when I moved to the United States, I signed up to take English classes at a local community college. During that time, my daughter was born, and I learned right away that she has a chromosome abnormality, and she had severe hearing loss and a lot of health issues. Yeah, needless to say, the first year of her life, we were in survival mode. We had a lot of surgeries, a lot of doctor's appointment, audiology, figuring out how we move forward to support her, to grow up to be healthy, and to support her whatever it takes, right? During that time, I was in college working on my business degree. I wanted to become an accountant. So right away when she was born, I realized that will change. So my life will look different. Right away, I changed my major to deaf study degree, learn sign language. And I wanted to be equipped, to be knowledgeable, to be able to support her and all her needs, right? And also to learn sign language, American Sign Language. Many years since then, like every time I come to the table to advocate for her, I feel like I come from a different place, right? Because I study, I feel empowered for knowing how to advocate for her. I feel empowered to understand her needs more. And yeah, my education helped with that a lot. Both of my kids are Regional Center clients. So when they were young, and I think other parents can relate to that, we are bombarded with emails and information, and there is a workshop, there is a training, there is a conference. I made a point to go to all of them. So I remember showing up one day to a workshop, and they were asking me, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I got this email. I heard there is a training." So it was not for parents, it was for teachers. But I also wanted to learn what they learned, right? So I thought I was important part of the team when deciding my child's future, my child's education. And that's why I'm excited you guys are all here to do the same. We are all here to learn from each other. And there are so many new things. So I'm excited to share new ways to support our kids. And I apologize, I said our kids. I'm pretty sure we have self-advocates here and adults. Sorry, I don't want to exclude, but since I'm a parent, I refer to parents a lot. Self-determination, a little bit of short history of self-determination and what was the idea behind it. The idea of self-determination was to find a more cost-effective system of serving people with developmental disabilities. The idea is to give these people and their family more choice in determining the services they receive. In 1990s, the state program serving individuals with developmental disabilities encountered three different problems. There was rapidly raising in cost of services. The cost was going up. Insufficient resources. And also the families had little control over the services they received and how they were provided and who would provide the services. So in 2013, Governor Brown signed into a law self-determination program, which gives regional center clients another way to receive services. So what is self-determination? It's a program where individuals with disabilities and their family receive public funds, receive a specific budget, in which they can purchase the services and the supports they need. Self-determination is about choice and control and responsibility regarding the services and support that fit your needs. And I'm pretty sure everybody agrees that the needs are so different, right? They are not two people that we can duplicate a program or say whatever works for this person will work for the other one. They are also unique. So the idea is to create a program that fits your needs and supports you to reach your goals. So both in traditional model and in self-determination, the regional centers are the payer of the last resort. What that means is that you must access generic resources and natural supports before accessing the regional center services. And these are same for traditional model and self-determination. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but just to understand a little bit the principle behind the self-determination. Self-determination is freedom to exercise the same rights as all people, to establish freely choosing supports, family and friends, where you want to live, who you want to live with, and the supports you need. The participant has authority over the resources, which includes the ability of the person with disability or the family to control the budget, to purchase the services and supports. Support, another principle is support for building a life in the community. which allows you flexibility to live in the community of your choice. Responsibility. Responsibility includes the opportunity to take responsibility for making decisions on your own, and also to be accountable for the use of public funds. Confirmation of the critical role you and your family had in making decisions. Nothing about me without me comes from the confirmation principle. In other words, self-determination, it's about people having a choice, knowing more about themselves, having dreams and goals, and going after them, being in control, making their own decisions, spending money responsibly, and having dignity and respect. So at the glance, you can see there are things that look the same in traditional model and self-determination. Let's start with the person-centered planning. The person-centered planning is very important for both the traditional and the self-determination model. With a strong and effective person-centered plan, it's essential to establish clear goals and meaningful outcomes. You and your circle of support can identify the specific services and supports necessary to achieve your goals. Having specific goals is very important when you develop your spending plan, because in your spending plan, you give a name to each dollar. You show how the way you spend the money supports you reaching the goals. One of the difference is in traditional model, you can use only vendor providers. And in self-determination, you can use vendor and non-vendor providers, which gives you more freedom and flexibility when it comes to choosing your providers. You might want to use an independent facilitator's help through this process. I don't want to call it a difficult process, but it's not simple. In self-determination, you must use a financial managing services agency that will provide support with managing your spending plan, your vendors and employees. That's a must-have service. Few things to remember. Self-determination, it's a voluntary program. It's your choice to be in self-determination or to leave the program at any point. If you decide to leave, you won't have the opportunity to return to the program for 12 months. If you move to a different area, you can stay in self-determination program no matter which regional center you use. In California, there are 21 regional centers, and although they are all under DDS, Department of Developmental Services, each regional center has somehow different rules. However, you can still move from one to another and receive services with no problem. To receive services in self-determination, another thing that's important, you must live in a community. For example, you cannot live in a licensed long-term care facility or a developmental service unless you plan to move in the community within 90 days. So you could start the process even if you live in a long-term facility, if you plan to live within 90 days to live in a community. So let's talk about roles and responsibilities a little bit. You have a big team and there are a lot of people involved in the process and in supporting you. So you, the participant, your responsibility is to attend the orientation, to understand self-determination program. Your responsibility is to develop your person-centered plan and participate in the IPP process. And also you must work with the financial managing services when in self-determination. You can choose the people in your life to participate in supporting you in the ways you want and you need. And that is your circle of support. Your regional center service coordinator continues to be a required and active person to help you plan for the services and supports you need. You may choose to hire an independent facilitator to help you navigate the transition, to plan your services and support, and to manage your program. The service providers, you decide who's your service provider, and you determine your relationship with your service providers and what and how you need them to support you. Again, the Financial Managing Services Agency is a required service to have. They will pay your bills and manage your spending plan. They must be vendor with the regional center. And also they offer a few different models. So it's your choice which model you're gonna use. Here is a very simplified list of the steps. Again, you are required to take the orientation. You will receive a certificate. At that point, you share the certificate with your service coordinator and inform them that you would like to start the transition process to self-determination. To develop a person-centered plan, you can choose to get help to discuss the services you have in place so far and discuss possible new needs or changing circumstances. There are a few steps in between. At that point, you present your person-centered plan to the regional center, and they will propose a budget that supports the services, a budget that will pay for the services you need and you requested. And you are responsible to stay within the budget. After you have the budget, you will create a spending plan. In the spending plan, you will show how you will use the funds. You will buy services and supports you need in order to meet your goals. Like I said, I like to call it, you give a name to each dollar. And then next, you choose a financial managing services agency that will manage the spending plan, pay your vendors, and pay your employees. Let's talk a little bit about independent facilitator. An independent facilitator, it is a position specific to self-determination. They must be trained in the principles of self-determination and understand person-centered planning. Also, they must be familiar with the process. You are not required to have an independent facilitator, but an independent facilitator could support you in many ways. So these are a few things that the independent facilitator, actually they walk step by step with you from the day you decide to transition to the transition day. And also there's an option to use an independent facilitator while in self-determination to support you manage the program. Here is a list of questions you could ask when you interview an independent facilitator. There are a lot of independent facilitators, and I think you should find the right fit for your family. It's important for them to have the skills, but also for you to connect with them. Here are some questions. What are their experience? What's their professional background? How familiar are they with the area, with the local resources? If they prefer to work with a certain age group of participants. Like from experience, I found some prefer younger kids, are more experienced to work with younger kids. Some are experts on the transition period, around 22, when they transition from school to the life. And some are experts in adulthood. So that's a good question to ask. I think that's a good question. Ask what's their availability. A lot of independent facilitators right now have long waiting list, and one of the reason is a lot of people decided to transition to SDP. It's a great way to control your life as a person with disability. But also there are a lot of changes in the way independent facilitator provides services. There are new regulations and rules from DDS. And from my observation, a lot of independent facilitators right now are waiting to see which direction things are going, and are not taking new clients right now, some of them. And this is connected with to ask if they are vendors with the regional center to provide services under 099. And I'll explain in the next slide what that means. You can ask if they will meet you in person or virtually. You might have a preference. Yeah, it was interesting to me. One of my mentors said, I never met the participants in person. And I'm like, I like to meet them. Like, I do like to meet them. Like, that's how I prefer. I like to meet people in person. Not for every meeting, like a lot of the meetings happen on Zoom, but I do like to have a connection. Also would be nice to ask, you could ask how they stay in touch with changes to the self-determination program and how they learn about DDS directives. DDS comes with directives, with new changes all the time. So like we had 5 or 6 end of December. There is a new directive actually that came in February that's very good for our clients, for the participant. In the past, the social recreational activities need to happen only in a group. The new directive states that you could have social recreational activities provided one-on-one in an integrated environment, of course, but they can be provided one-on-one. So that is new, and that was actually great news. So this is the graph from DDS that explains how the funds are allocating when transitioning to SDP. So this is the independent facilitator function. So before it was one full block, now they split it in two. Is the person-centered plan and then pre-transition support. Yeah, so for the independent facilitator to provide pre-transition support, the 099 that I mentioned before, they need to be vendors with the regional center. And a lot of independent facilitators choose not to do that. They might still, when you interview, they might still be willing to provide this service and not get paid. They would support you throughout the transition. But I think that's an important question because you don't want to have a PCP, and then if they drop you, you need to manage the rest of the transition yourself. The FMS, the Financial Managing Services, will support you while you are in SDP and also right before you transition. They will support with reviewing your spending plan and then onboard your employees and vendors. The Financial Managing Services, or the FMS, is required by the regional center as a service to having self-determination. So some of the services the FMS provides is they do a background check on your workers. For instance, they check and verify licenses and training requirements for some of the workers or for some of the businesses. The FMS gives you and the regional center a monthly report about your spending plan and how much money you have left and how much money you spend. So your regional center or your independent facilitator will provide you with a list. There are a lot of agencies. There is a list of agencies that can provide the service, and they are all different. So the regional center, usually the independent facilitator will support you while pick an FMS that's a good fit for you. The cost of the FMS, it's paid by the regional center, so nothing comes out of your budget. So here are some questions when you interview an FMS. How familiar they are with California self-determination? Which model they offer? They might offer bill payer, sole employer, co-employer. Some offer all three models, some don't. Yeah, actually there is an agency that we all love and recently stopped providing co-employer model. You can ask how will they communicate with you, meaning how fast they will answer your emails. Some of the agencies will assign a worker to your case, which is my favorite way. And some will give you a generic number, customer support to call for everything. So the experience can be different. You could be on a phone for a long time sometimes. You could ask in co-employer model, what's their role in hiring your employees? How will they pay the vendors? How will they pay the employees? Like sometimes there are delays with vendor payments, and that is really difficult because we already have to negotiate with our vendors, sometimes even to convince them to work with us in self-determination. And if they don't get paid on time, that's not a good situation. You can ask, how will you have access to the monthly spending reports? Some agency will offer you, you can set up a portal and you go yourself and check your financial statements at any point. And then some of them will only send you a report once a month. I could take a break now. If you guys have questions, we'll move to discuss person-centered planning from here. But any questions regarding the process of transitioning to self-determination?
Yes, I'm going to ask two questions. The first is, are there some FMSs that have spending plan size limits, and what's the best way to find that out?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes. So that is one of the limits that we have with some FMS. Some have a budget limit that they will work with. Yes. If we go, I know everybody's budget limit, but I'm trying to figure out where can the participant find it. I think on the list of FMS, everybody states their budget limit, yes.
And then the second question is, what's the best place to get feedback from other parents and other participants about their experience with an FMS and kind of the reputation?
I mean, there are some groups on social media that parents discuss what works for them, their experience. Sometimes I connect with other independent facilitators. I'm actually I continue to stay in touch with a group of independent facilitators, and we have our own network, and we discuss that. So I could give that information to the participant. For the participant, connect with others, connect with other parents, connect with other SDB participants. I would say in social media, because that's how people communicate. I can say from my experience, if I talk to a participant and they ask an advice, I can only speak from my experience. I try not to assume what everything it's said online is so. So there is a specific FMS that didn't have a good review. My experience was great with them. They were very supportive, and my clients were always felt supported and taken care of. So I would say take your information from everywhere and make your decision what works for you. But again, we all connect on a social media, and there are a lot of self-determination groups on Facebook.
And then there's one more question. Will Regional Center provide a list of independent facilitators to interview? And is that also true of FMS providers?
It's true for both of them, yes. So there is, we can put a link later, the independent facilitators, it's like a directory for California. There is a long list of all of them, and you can choose by regional center. You can just go through their profile. I can find a link and post that later. I think it's Independent Facilitator California Network, or you might find hundreds of them right now, because I see there are always names added to it. I recommend to look at the regional center where you are located to see who has experience to work with that regional center. Because like I said earlier, regional center have different, they do have different rules. I mean, one of the things is overnight respite. Some regional centers require a lot of documentation when you ask for overnight respite. I want to see the reservation of the hotel. I want to see the airplane ticket before they approve overnight respite for the participant. Some regional centers are easier to listen to their need and understand the situation and offer overnight respite. Social rec, it's also another one that each regional center deals with it different. In my area, there are different rules. I work with participants in North LA, for instance, totally different. So it's good to find an independent facilitator that is familiar. And you can look, when you look at their posting, they all have a list of regional centers that they work with. I prefer to stay local, but I have clients in other regional centers.
And you got one more question while you were speaking. This person is still a little unclear about the concept of self-determination. And I think what they're trying to ask is, how does one decide if that's an appropriate move to go from the traditional model into the self-determination program? Meaning, what are the needs of the participant that you would maybe consider that would make you make that leap from one program model to the other?
So there are few things that I consider before. I mean, take the orientation first. The orientation describes the process and how services are different in self-determination. I always said, watch the orientation first. You might say, yeah, this is not for me, this is too much. Second, there are a lot of stories, success stories. People transitioning, I think it's 90% are satisfied, are happy that they transition. Almost nobody transitions back. Talk to other people. There are a lot of testimony of how they changed their life. They have freedom of choosing the services, choosing their workers. One of the things for me when I decided to transition my own children was I want to be able to pay my workers a different rate. The skills that my worker need to show, it's a unique set of skills, right? So I wanted somebody that's deaf or a CODA or somebody very skilled in sign language. I prefer somebody deaf because my daughter is deaf, right? So because the person that works for me needs to have a specific set of skills, I want to be able to find a person, actually pay them a good rate, right? So they come and they stay. I can't do that in traditional. In traditional, my respite provider is through agency. The agency keeps half, the respite provider gets half. After I transition, I could give the total to my worker. So that was, for me, that was the only reason I transitioned many years ago, my children. I wanted to be able to reward my worker for the amazing work they do. It's easier to find workers when you are in position of negotiation, right? Also with vendors, the social rec activities that I can access in self-determination, I could never access in traditional, right? So that was another one. I'm thinking what else.
There's a follow-up question that might help you answer the primary question. The question is, how do we know what services are available to ask for, especially deaf-related services? And I think you might have answered some of that already. But there doesn't seem to be a comprehensive list, except if maybe we're looking at that service code list.
So in PCP, I'm going to talk, when we discuss PCP, I'm going to talk more about specific, the way we add, because when you create a person-centered plan, that process will give you all these answers. When you bring your circle of support and your team, I'm going to discuss about all the things you add in a person-centered plan. And based on that, you look at the needs, the services you need, and the services they are available. So it's a teamwork. The regional center is part of it. Your independent facilitator is part of it. Everyone that you want to bring to the table is part of it. If it's a deaf person, and we're going to talk about that later, if it's a deaf individual, of course, let's bring some, we're going to bring interpreter, deaf coaches, people that are familiar with the deaf culture. So we bring everybody at the table, and that's how we decide the needs and what's available. I will talk about that. I will describe a PCP meeting and how we look at the needs of each individual. And I think the question is valid because I hear a lot from the participants that I work with. How do we know what's available? And it can be sad because there are a lot of things available and families don't know. I totally feel for them. but that's why it's a teamwork and connecting with other families. I learn a lot about other deaf disabled families that I work with. I was not aware, and I'm going to talk about this later, but I'll bring it here. I was not aware of the new position. I think it was about a year ago that the regional center started to provide communication support. So we knew ISL interpreter or deaf interpreter. What is a communication support? So that was something that I learned last year because the participant that I work with had specific needs. Being connected with others and being connected in a community. And again, I hope your independent facilitator will be able to answer these questions and support you to your specific needs. But I will talk a little bit about specific deaf disabled needs.
Interpreter switching now.
That's it for questions.
So creating a person-centered plan, it's a very important step of the traditional model and self-determination. There are funds allocated for the participant to receive support to develop the person-centered plan. The process of developing a person-centered plan. For self-determination participants, the process of developing a person-centered plan includes meetings with the participant and the circle of support. Some people call them a party with a purpose. The person-centered plan, it's about the individual's goals for the future and having a plan to reach these goals. The process should be driven by the individual and reflect what is important to and what is important for that person. There was a new concept for me, the difference between important to and important for. And then we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The person-centered planning can include other people such as family and friends, anyone else the participant chooses to include in a process. The family and the participants' wants and needs will be clearly stated in the PCP. This report, the PCP, the person-centered plan report, will include goals and the plan how to reach these goals. Also, the services that you propose for the participant to reach their goals. The process might take few meetings, communication back and forth, with the goal to create the most accurate representation of the individual. When somebody looks at the document, to really read a clear story, like see the person exactly how they are. The person-centered plan, it's a live document. It can be changed at any point. Sometimes there are changes in the circumstances for the participant. The goals can change sometimes. How we address the needs can change also. You would revisit and make changes to your PCP at least one time a year. So this is what I was talking about, important to and important for. And again, I don't know how many parents are here, but as a parent, when our kids are very young or babies, we think what's important for them, right? To be healthy, to be safe, to be supported, it's what's important for them, but I'm the one bringing that to the table. Important too, it's what's important to them. And I had to learn to listen to my youngest, as young as they are, watch them and to see what's important to them, to play, to have friends, to be connected with the community. when they are around other DHH kids, ooh, they are happy. That is important to them. I see how important is that to them. Favorite places, or routine, right? We all know how important is routine for them. For us, I could just grab the kids, say, hey, we're going there. It's time to move. And they're like, no, I need routine. Don't mess with my routine. And I think to include that and to be in tune to what's important to them, to be respected, privacy, and the communication mode. And communication mode, I think it's important. It's important for them and to them. That's a big one for me. The circle of support. Who is your circle of support? And you, the family and the participant, you decide who you include in your circle of support. It can be anyone. You use the people that know most about you, the people that know most about your needs, the people that are most familiar with you. And you bring to the table the people that you want to be part of deciding for your future. Let's talk about this together. People that know you bring their own knowledge and maybe another perspective when you plan your future. You could have paid and unpaid support. You can bring, extended families. I would bring, if you have your respite worker that's very familiar, you can bring them to the table. They might have something to say, somebody that's very familiar with you. Now we are at the meeting, the communication and the planning meeting. How will that communication look? How will include the participant, right? We have deaf or hard of hearing, deaf and other disabilities in a meeting. How do we make them part of this discussion? In recognizing the diverse spectrum of communication modes used by the deaf and hard of hearing individual, the focus remains on full access and effective communication during the planning meetings and also during all services and activities in a community. Every person can express what they like and dislike in their own way. They have that right. Some communicate by smiling, some are typing, some can use pictures, some can sign, some can use their voice, pointing. The participant has the right to communicate to the team their choice regarding communication mode. Depends on the participant's age, unique needs, and communication mode. The planning team will consider to add to the team interpreters, American Sign Language interpreters, deaf interpreters, communication support, deaf coaches, all together to support to close the communication, the comprehension, and the cultural gap. Like, for instance, a deaf coach will bring a deaf perspective at the supports needed when the participant is in a community. Right? When our children go to play tennis, that looks different, that might look different. The deaf interpreter will make sure the content is accessible during the meeting and the participant and will check for understanding. Sometimes the content of these meetings is heavy, it's advanced, but the deaf interpreter and depends on the participant. I don't want to say willingness, but depends on what part of the process they are involved. And the reason I say that because, like, my daughter is like, bye, see you later. So some can stay through the meeting and want to be part of everything. And some are like, yes, mom, you know what I like, bye. That's why I said a deaf interpreter plays that role to make sure there is comprehension and there is not a communication gap or understanding gap. For instance, if we discuss social recreational opportunities for a younger client, Depends on their communication mode. We might show pictures of the activities that we consider, like it can be swimming, it can be horseback riding, it can be martial arts, or attending an art studio. If they never participate in that activity before, we will show them a video, for instance, right? For them, it's like, oh, I want to try that. If the participant uses American Sign Language, depends on the level of language, the team should use signs at all time and always expand, explain, and check for understanding. I remember when my kids were younger, and if I would introduce a new topic or a new concept, I would make sure I introduce that in 3 or 4 ways. I would show the object or a picture. I would sign, right? I would show the word, like that's pre-reading skills. And I would voice if you voice. So show the concept, make sure the participant understands, show the concept, show what you are trying to convey in different ways, and always check for understanding. If we discuss, if it's an older participant, let's say we discuss moving out and living independently, the discussion will look different, right? How do we convey that information to ensure the participant has fully access to information, comprehends the content and the ramification of this change, and it's part of that decision making? The communication support team responsibility is to set up the context and describe the process and facilitate comprehension and communication. I remember recently I've been in a meeting with an older participant, and we were discussing moving out of the area, moving to another area. It was a really difficult time and a really difficult discussion. I wanted to make sure the participant we get her excited about moving. And we didn't explain all the troubles of moving, and the family was dealing with a lot. But I said, you're going to move closer to the rest of your family. Your brothers will be there. You will make new friends. It was a really tough time, really tough meetings. But I felt was my call to make sure she's comfortable and somehow get her excited about moving. Changes are hard, right? And it was a scary time. And not everything in the meeting was explained to her because there were details and decision-making for the family. But we wanted to be part of it, and she was always there with us. And I said, how exciting, you move close to your brothers. So she was, in her own way, part of we made sure she was included in the conversation.
Interpreters are switching now.
I'm gonna go a little bit faster over this because there are a few other things I want to share. What do we include in the PCP? Everything about the person. We come to the table and we talk about everything. The story, I always like to hear the story. Discuss circle of support, who's going to be part of the support. Things they like, things they don't like. What's their strength, what their needs. What's their obstacles? I think obstacles, it's a big one. Hopes and dreams, what are their goals? I print this morning because I went through some of the PCP, and I was curious. I was curious to look back at some of their dreams and goals. I would say again, as a parent, we are in survival mode so much, and we fight for education and school, and we advocate for things that are happening right now, and we don't really stop to dream. We don't really stop to think, what are the plans for the future? So this is a great opportunity to bring everyone to the table and just ask the question, what do you plan to do when you grow up? What do you want to do this summer? Often our kids and self-advocates, nobody's asking them, what are your goals? What are your dreams? So I was looking over some PCPs, and somebody said, I want to go to Paris for my 50th birthday. I want to move to Paris and become a baker. That's a good one. Other hopes and dreams. Ty's biggest dream is to drive a car. I want to have a job and to have a home on my own. I want to drive a car, a blue car. I want to have lifelong friends. Stay in great shape. My dream is to be independent. I want to become a real estate entrepreneur. I want to own a car dealership. I want to act in movies. So these are some of the dreams. And I love when we have this discussion because it makes all of us think. It makes the participant think like, oh, I can dream. I can dream. And I love to do that in as part of the PCP. Writing goals. So the PCP will include goals in different areas. What are the goals of the participant? And again, I print few goals this morning. I was like, let's give some examples of goals. For instance, for living arrangements, the participant will live with his parents, or the participant will live independently with support. I put my name. The participant will have the opportunity to engage with peers in the community through attending the gym and weekly going to group training. So these are examples of goals. The participant will attend camps with typical peers and develop appropriate socializing skills, develop friendship, and acquire independence. Another goal for medical equipment. The participant will use home equipment to keep his muscles active, maintain and improve muscle strength and elasticity. We could also include the goals that are not supported in SDP. For instance, the participant will maintain good physical health, mental and dental health, right? But we use generic resources and natural supports for that. We use the insurance and we use other supports, not SDP funds. However, we would still include other goals, all their goals in the PCP. For family training, the parent will continue education with focus on supporting the participant needs. For instance, my conference of choice, it's always CalEd conference. That's one of my favorite, but you can choose a different conference. However, it needs to be in California. And you need to show how will that conference support you in taking care of your child, or as a self-advocate, how will that conference empower you? And here are some resources available. We'll discuss a little bit later, and I can answer more questions. Always American Sign Language interpreter, right? Deaf interpreters, communication support, deaf culture specialist, deaf mentor, and other aids, communication devices, closed captioning, open captioning, video display, whatever the participant needs. Based on the discussion, we add to the PCP and discuss the need, and we bring the need to the regional center and ask for funds to support that. There is one thing that I like to include on a PCP. I'm going back a little bit. There is one thing that I like to include, which is a funny page. Kind of to loosen up the things in a meeting. I create a page, what would the person say? So then right away, the family and the friends, they all throw sentences. And here are some examples, and they are always funny. Don't check on me, I'm okay. So the participant always say, don't check on me, I'm okay. I can do anything myself. That's a good one. because parents always checking. And they're like, I can do anything myself. I can make my own lunch. And that's the way we discover their personality. We discover their sense of humor sometimes. There is a guy that always says, let's find a girlfriend to my cousin. So he always says that. Or stop asking questions, it's annoying. We do that all the time, I think. We ask questions because we want to have a conversation, and this is one participant that says, stop asking questions, it's annoying. Who's coming over? That's another question. Who's coming over? That's my daughter. Who's coming over? What's their name? I'm like, I have no idea their name. So another participant said she needs to go to school. That was about the teacher. So every time the teacher would come, because I think he was home hospital, he would always say she needs to go to school. So I think that's another way to get familiar with the participant and create that plan around them, and consider their personalities, their wants and needs. I want to show you guys, because we talk about effective communication, and from the beginning, when my daughter was born, that was one of my goals and one of my focus during my education. What is effective communication? How will that look for her? How will effective communication look when she goes to the gym? Or when she goes to a restaurant, when she plays tennis? That was kind of the focus of my education: language and access and effective communication. I have 2 videos for you guys to see the difference, or you guys tell me which one is effective communication and which one is not. And this is Victoria. Thank you all for birthday wishes. I'll do that again because I love it. You see the wishes sign was coming at the end. Did you see that? She said, thank you all for birthday. I love you. And then the wishes sign was coming at the end. And then that is not my favorite. This one is my favorite. I heard this is an issue for other deaf adults, and I think it's a funny video. And which one? I mean, it's no brainer, right? Which one is her language? Which is her effective communication? Do you know as a team? Do you know as a family what works for you? Did you figure out what communication works for your child, or what communication works for you as an adult? Did you figure that out? Did you have that conversation? Do you follow your child's lead? I remember when Victoria was born, they told me that she's going to choose her language later. I said, how? If we don't expose her, if we don't offer her, how will she decide what works for her? I strongly believe, because we are in a deaf support group, I strongly believe in offer them everything. And it was, for Victoria, was an easy choice. Which one works for her? And I hope families, I hope IEP teams, I hope PCP teams, we all take a step back and really see what works and what offer the student or what offer the child, what offers the child full access. So that's my thing about language, and I think everyone should have the opportunity to be exposed to American Sign Language and have a choice. Okay. I am ready for more questions.
Thank you. That was so wonderful. I think in looking back at some of the things you went over. Oh, I'm on screen now. Okay, thank you. One of the questions that I think would be important is the value of really making sure your IPP is reflective of your participant or your own needs before even starting the process. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't realize. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit, because I think a lot of times the IPP is an essential building block to building that PCP, and then the spending plan. And a lot of times people don't have a very robust or detailed IPP. So maybe you can kind of talk about the steps to prepare for even going into the PCP process.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great point, because when I take an IPP and I look, there are very few goals and not very, very detailed and not very client-oriented. They are the same goals I see for everyone, almost the same goals. They will stay safe. They will have emergency supply. And also, I think goes a little bit hand in hand with the other question that said, how do we know what's available? So in the IPP, I would say, I don't want to say I feel, but in the past, in the IPP, the regional center designed the IPP based on what they were planning to offer, right? What was available for younger kids was respite, and then the bracelet, how do you call that? The safety bracelet. Most of the IPP only had that before. So the conversation of needs and IPP goals, it always happens in traditional models. So even when we ask for unmet needs, you said before you even start the transition to self-determination, you could meet with your regional center and said there's a change in circumstances or unmet needs. So that's how you address making changes or adding new goals to your IPP. Because everybody already has an IPP in place. We assume everybody has an IPP in place. So that's how you address and you add new goals to the IPP. If it's somebody that's deaf, communication, it's a big one. And you can expand so much when it comes to that. I remember I called one regional center. I said a participant is deaf, and they answered, "We don't cover this." I said, "It's blind. We don't cover this." So the history shows the regional centers was not really supporting or knowing how to support the deaf and hard of hearing or the deaf disabled population. So there are nothing offered, nothing available, nothing ever mentioned, actually. My daughter is 15. Nobody ever said, hey, when you look at respite provider, maybe they should know sign language. So no, none of the deaf needs were ever included. I never seen an IPP to include communication needs or communication support. But we are, it's a different season, so I would recommend a participant to go back and say, we have unmet needs. This is a need that was not addressed before. So that's how you add goals, new goals to your IPP. And the stronger your IPP comes when you start the transition, you already have things in place, right? So you don't have to advocate for new services or for new things. If it was not included in your IEP and you decide to start the transition, the goals in the PCP will be somehow transferred in the IPP. So the way I write goals and propose services in the PCP, I write them as IPP goals, actually. So the participant will, I think I gave some examples. The participant will attend the local gym and enjoy working out with his peers. So then we move that to the IPP, and the participant will have opportunity to work out in an integrated environment or whatever we want to write it. But you are right. The IPP in the past did not address the needs of the deaf and hard of hearing population. And the more information we bring to the table to describe the need, the better. Like would be alarms in a house for somebody that's deaf. How do they know in case of emergency what to do? What else would be another? And also either communication support or a CDI or an interpreter for all social rec activities. That's another one. And that can be in an IPP without transitioning or discussing at PCP. I would also add not only, because sometimes they said we offer interpreter for the services we offer for social rec. How about deaf events that they need a one-on-one aid? What about, I don't know, going to church or whatever they do Sunday morning, wherever they go? So all these community opportunities, community integration opportunities, our kids need that extra support. So I would come up with a schedule. The families, I recommend, come up with a schedule. Show me where do you need these supports, right? So they are at school 8 hours in the afternoon. Whatever activities they go to, social rec 4 times a week, Saturday they go to deaf events, or whatever they participate as a deaf individual, they need extra support.
Right. And I would say, you mentioned they're the payer of last resort. A lot of the social rec opportunities or community integration opportunities are going to be places and organizations that aren't ADA obligated to fund an interpreter. So that's why those regional center funds for interpreter support or communication support are so important, because otherwise that communication access isn't there if the participant chooses to go. Or worst case scenario, the participant just doesn't go at all because there is no communication access. So yes, that is so critical. We have a few minutes left. So if there are any additional questions that maybe are more specific to your situation that you want to ask, please feel free to utilize the chat box. I realized I was so excited to hear Mirella present that I did not even introduce myself, and I was stuck in sign language mode and I wasn't code switching. So my brain was just stuck in not introducing myself yet. So I apologize. So let me do that now. If you don't know who I am, my name is Kristen Stratton, and I'm a parent consultant for NorCal, and I'm also a special education advocate. And so it was my absolute privilege to get to introduce you today, Mirella. That was a wonderful presentation. And I think it's such a wonderful program, and I really hope more people take advantage of it. I think one more question that I would love to hear your input on. You mentioned that it's difficult to kind of coax and encourage the vendors to come on board sometimes. Maybe you could give some advice just as we're preparing to finish the presentation on how to explain to a vendor more about this program in a way that might invite them to participate, because I think that conversation can be really intimidating as a parent. And maybe you can help kind of make that a little bit easier of a process.
I would say that it's still intimidating for me. So first I try to create a relationship, to make a connection. If it's an art studio, I might take a class there just to meet the owner, to build a connection first. I want to say when somebody says no, that means nothing to me. So I'm like, no, you don't understand. Let me explain to you how this works. So usually I say, are these families or individuals, they are part of this program, and this program will pay for them to come to your classes, to come to your gym. And they say, what it's, I never use the word vendor because they don't like that. So I never used the word vendor. I said, my kids will come here and play tennis, just their funds come from somewhere else. Let's see how we make this work. So it depends on the situation. I even tell families, and I offer the agency or the businesses that I go and talk, I'm like, what can I do for you? I will make this as easy as possible. I will send reminders. I will help you with invoicing. I will do anything until we get, until they agree to. It's not, I say there is a process to sign up, but it's not that difficult. I say, I do the same. I'm a provider too. So I kind of get on their side. I'm a provider. I had to go through the same process. I had to go through this process to be able to serve these families, but it's not that hard. I heard recently, so I don't know if this is okay or not, but I heard recently that actually some companies will take SDP participants, but because it's a little bit more work, paperwork, the way they get paid, they might charge a little bit higher rate. So let's say if the membership is $89, they might charge you $99 or things like that, because there is, sometimes they said, I cannot hire another person to deal with this. I cannot hire another person to do the paperwork. So as family, like for my own kids, the negotiation was brutal. But I would not take a no for an answer. I'm like, okay, so let's try a different way. How can I make it easy for them? And how can I make it easy for the FMS? Because I have to deal with the FMS also. Sometimes the FMS are rigid about how they make payments, and that's a problem. So there is a new DDS directive that allows FMSs to make a payment in different ways. I think it's case to case. What I said, what I usually say, I said, is this family, they are part of this program and they want to participate, just the money comes from somewhere else. Let's see how we do this. I can get discouraged sometimes, to be honest, because, for instance, we found a great day program for somebody, and the moment I say self-determination, they said, oh, let me think. And I'm like, there are a lot of participants that would benefit. So to explain the program, it's still new. But then I have agencies and companies that call me. It's like, I want to work with clients in self-determination. So there are some that understand the concept and are welcoming and are so eager to have our participants. So I encounter both situations and everywhere in the middle. I'm sorry if the answer was not, I mean, I think it was clear, but this is the reality. I will not say it is not, because I'm still sending email reminders. Are you ready to sign? It's like, oh yeah, I'll sign tomorrow. And it's like, I still have to talk to somebody.
Yeah, no, I think that you being an independent facilitator and still saying that it can be a struggle is really important. I myself, I work as a professional advocate in the special education realm, but then when I needed to go through the process for my own deaf disabled child, I also felt really intimidated, even though I knew I had the skill set. when you're caregiving, especially if you have like a medically complex child or if you're an adult going through this process as the participant and you have a lot of things that you're trying to balance with your own needs, your own support needs, it can be a lot to take on. And when I speak to people about this process, say it's probably going to be a year-long process. Maybe it will be less, ideally less, but I think that that's a reasonable length of time to give yourself to anticipate from start to finish. Start meaning you take the orientation, finish meaning you're enrolled, and have a start date and initiate with the financial management service and are completely transitioned into the self-determination program. Because it is a totally different program than anything else you kind of learn as you go through the public benefits system or the special education system and even regional center. It is very, very different. So with that said, I think it's good to hear that even people who do it for a living find it a little bit daunting, but still find it worth it. I think that that's the takeaway.
Yeah, if I can have a minute, like regarding the let's call them vendors for the purpose of this meeting. So they are big gyms.
One moment, interpreter's going to switch.
We had FMS when we mentioned a certain club or a certain gym. They said, oh, no, wait, they will never work. They will never. And then we contacted the club, was a racket club in Yuba City, and they said, no, guess what? We end up working with them. So, like I said, for families can be a lot, but they are not doing it alone if they decide to get support. So that's where I always tell them, and they're like, how do we do this? I'm like, we are doing this together. It's okay. And to go back to the question, why would they transition? Like there was one, why would they transition? Because when they hear this, but just like you said, it's worth it. But the process can be, you can struggle and you can be frustrated here and there. And I get frustrated for my people. So if you can design your program in a way it works for your child in traditional, and you don't want to deal with this, you have other stuff going on right now, that's okay. I will say the freedom that I have to choose what my kids do and how, it's so worth it. Every month I have to go through a process, reminding the vendors, connect the vendors with my FMS, make sure that the payment is done, So I have to go through that every month for my kids. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. And Victoria has communication support, and I would not trade what they have right now for anything.
Well, I think that's a great way to finish today on that exact message. Thank you so much for your time. That was a wonderful presentation and such great information. If we could please ask you guys to complete our survey. I dropped the link in our chat box. That helps us learn from all of you who joined us today how we can improve, but also what you learned and what you benefited from today's presentation. Thank you so much again to Marilla for her outstanding expertise and experience and being so generous. Thank you to our interpreters and to our technical support. It's a team effort to make these support groups happen, and we couldn't do it without everybody. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we hope that you join us for our next presentation in about 3 weeks' time. Information coming soon.
Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.